Welcome to another Legacy Warriors podcast. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, your boy on social media at MMALOTN, and the architect behind the MMA Fight Archive, making sure you leave no stone unturned when you're researching these upcoming MMA events. You want to know how I know as much as I know about these 26 fighters I'm quickly about to break down for you guys? It's thanks to the MMA Fight Archive, where we have as many direct links as possible for their past fights, so you know exactly what to expect when they step foot in the cage on the weekends. We're closing in on 5,500 fighter profiles, not to mention 120 subscribers as well. There's a 7-day free trial for you to try it out for free. Check the link in the description below. That is the MMA Fight Archive. All right. This is the second Legacy Warriors podcast we're doing this week, as we had LFA 212 going down as we speak. But Cage Warriors 192 will be the focus of this podcast, which goes down Saturday morning / afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. And it is headlined by a flyweight title fight between champion Haque, who's going up against rising contender Juwani Scott. A couple other interesting fights on the card as well, but a lot of names that I'm very excited about on this card to see how they're able to perform and see if they can continue to move closer to their dream of fighting in the UFC. Reminder, I always get asked in the comment section, confident plays, confident predictions. I'm going to put a pinned post or a pinned comment where you can find out where my confident plays are and stuff. All of that good stuff is always on the MMA LOT and Patreon page. Once again, I'll put that in the pinned comment below. All right, I believe there's 13 fights for this Cage Warriors 192 card. Let's get right to this bad boy. Let's try to get through it within 20 minutes, maybe less. We'll see if we can do that. All right. First fight up, Tom Creasey coming in at minus 800, going up against Roz Bring, who comes in at plus 550. Creasey is the brother of former champion Sam Creasey, and he's obviously not as good as his brother, but has some decent physical skill set, which I believe he'll be able to bring to fruition here against Roz Bring. Creasey's coming off of his second pro loss to Amir Malikpour in a fight where he couldn't get to his grappling enough, but I think he'll have no trouble doing that here against Roz Bring. With that said, with Creasey having nearly no striking ability, he's not a complete fish out of water, but he'll definitely be behind it here against Bring in the striking realm. I can't advise parlaying minus 800 in this type of spot, but I expect Creasey to go out there and grind this fight out. Next up, Yusuf Ali-Taleb coming in at minus 125, going up against Antonio Amodeo, who comes in at plus 105. Ali-Taleb is a Great Britain top team product coming into this matchup with a 5-0 record, utilizing his striking background, which is what he originally comes from. A lot of people are looking at that split decision loss or win that he has over a 6-9 opponent, but that guy was the first one to really push him in the grappling realm, but still Ali-Taleb was able to pass that test. He's going to have to deal with that once again here against Antonio Amodeo, who will be looking to utilize his physicality to thwart Ali-Taleb's striking and keep him in a position where he can't get off on that advantage. But I think Ali-Taleb will be able to stay away enough for him to get off on his striking advantage, but I don't have enough confidence, even at minus 125, because I want to see those grappling chops in play first before I go out there and play him. But I'm going to go with Ali-Taleb and assume that he outpoints his way to a decision victory. All right, next up, Ty Palmer coming in at plus 130, going up against Mitchell Goode, who comes in at minus 150. Palmer is a big physical fighter who got knocked out in 46 seconds by Paddy McCrory back in November, but he does have a win over George Smith, who seems to be a Cage Warriors mainstay now. That guy seems to be a grappler, and Palmer was able to just stifle him with his physicality and strength. And he might be able to get away with that here against Mitchell Goode, who's a very slick BJJ specialist, but not all that good of a wrestler, which is often why you see him getting those submissions off of his back. I think technically speaking, Goode is the better BJJ specialist here against Palmer, so he might be able to throw up a submission and catch Goode in something, but I'm not playing a guy like Goode at chalk, even though I'm predicting him to win this matchup because Palmer is just not that good. Goode could get grinded out here, so there is both guys not that great. I wouldn't hate on anybody looking to take the plus money on Palmer, but I'm going to go Goode here and Goode by decision or submission. All right, next up, we got Brad Wheeler coming in at plus 250, going up against Rafael Aronov, who comes in at minus 300. Both these guys really like to sling some leather. Wheeler is very experienced, but he doesn't really do well against guys that will provide legitimate resistance to him, and I think Aronov could do that. I think Aronov would be best suited to try to take this fight to the ground and utilize his BJJ brown belt, but I wouldn't be surprised if he wants to put fist to faces just as he has been in recent fights, and I think that he could come through with a finish here, but at minus 300, trusting a 7-6 fighter, probably not the way to go in terms of betting, but I still pick Aronov to win this matchup by knockout, or I'm going to say submission. I think he takes this fight to the ground to try to stay away from the brawling nature of Brad Wheeler. All right, next up, Joe Middleton coming in at plus 180, going up against Naglis Kanisauskas, who comes in at minus 210. Middleton turned pro in April of 2023, and he has put together a 3-0 record, submitting all three of those opponents. He's a BJJ black belt who trains alongside Stephen Hill, who fights later on the main card for this matchup, and makes no bones about what his approach is. He wants to take opponents to the ground and get to a dominant position pretty quickly, which he's pretty good at, and then looking for finishing positions there. And it was good to see him be able to go 15 minutes if he needs to. And he's going to have to rely on that grapple-heavy approach here against Kanisauskas, who's going to be looking to bounce back after losing out on his title shot last time around, or I should say he got the title shot, but ended up losing by split decision to champion Dario Belandi in a fight where he got pretty much picked apart on the feet. But Kanisauskas, decent striking background, blitzes in and out of the pocket pretty well, but his flaw is being held on the ground. And if he's fighting somebody that can stay out of the unorthodox submissions that he likes to throw up, he finds himself in a lot of trouble, and he could find himself in trouble here against Middleton. I think Middleton is strong enough from that top position and strong enough to get this fight to the ground when he needs to, and from there I think he can ground out Kanisauskas, and I'm gonna take Middleton to pull off the upside here at plus 180. As long as he can get those takedowns, which I think he can, he should be able to grind out Kanisauskas here, and I wouldn't be surprised if he even found a submission as well. Next up, we got Jack Humphries coming in at minus 550, going up against Rory Evans, who comes in at plus 400. Now, Humphries is a solid MMA Fight Academy prospect, originally trained alongside Jake Hadley, but has set up shop with the Fight Academy guys who have a ton of high-level prospects on the come-up, including Anthony Orozco, who fights later on in this card. Great grappler. You know, he showcased some solid striking and clinch elbows in his last matchup, but it was inevitably his grappling in the second round that got him that rear naked choke win over an undefeated opponent. But he's going up against a very game fighter here in Rory Evans, who may have a salty 7-7 record, but this is a guy that has wins over Wesley Maia and Taka Mahandu, and has been very competitive in a lot of his matchups. He's a relentless grappler, relentless wrestler, a guy that likes to apply the pressure and really just wear his opponents down. I think Humphries will be the physically more capable fighter here. I think he'll be able to keep Evans in spots where it'll be Evans playing defense for the most part, but this is going to be the most amount of resistance that Humphries has faced to date, so it's tough to trust him at minus 550, especially with somebody with the amount of experience and the fighting style that Rory Evans has here. So I don't hate on anybody looking to take a little bit of a sprinkle on Evans. I was considering it, but I think the physical advantages of Humphries will make the difference here, and that will allow him to grind this fight out. Maybe get a finish at a certain point, but this will be a tough matchup for him, but very good for his experience as well. All right, next up, we got Ali Sarwa coming in at minus 155, going up against Damiano Scogna, who comes in at plus 125. Now, Sarwa is a very educated striker who throws in great combinations, does a great job in terms of maintaining his distance, utilizing very good leg kicks to set up the rest of his combinations, but also has showcased an improved takedown game, which has allowed him to go undefeated in his pro career thus far. He's 6-0 so far, 10-4 as an amateur, but it's really his defensive grappling that has made him, or at least defensive grappling improvements that have made him so successful at this stage of his career. He's going up against a guy that will likely test him in that realm here in Damiano Scogna, who's also undefeated at 5-0-1 and picked up a third-round TKO back in March. He's a guy that normally looks to grapple as quickly as he can, but if he isn't, His striking mainly looks like him throwing a lot of power shots and looking to knock his opponents out. But I think that's going to cause him a lot of troubles here against a more technical striker in Sarwa. I think we'll see Sarwa stop the takedowns, force Scogna to strike with him, and that's going to cause him to stress out, slow down, and then eventually be pretty much at the whim of whatever Sarwa wants to do. I think Sarwa will be able to pick him apart, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to finish him within 2 rounds as well, considering a lot of the openings I see in Scogna's striking game if he's going to be forced to strike, which I think will happen at least come the second round. So give me Sarwa and Sarwa by knockout. All right, next up, we got Pell coming in at -210 going up against Shelley, who comes in at +170. Now, I faded Pell pretty heavily last time around against Ermel Jafari, but Jafari just desperation grappled, and he pretty much blew out his gas tank, allowing Pell to land some big damage to end that round. And I think he either broke his orbital or his nose, and as soon as Jafari tried to blow his nose, his eye blew up, and the fight was called off in between rounds there. Pell's, I think there's a little bit more hype on him than there should be. He's a close training partner of Jordan Vucenic. He has a decent grappling game that he can lean on at times, but still not all that high level there. It seems like he's fallen in love with his striking, which, made it kind of close in his November matchup against Danny Blundell, who's bloodying him up for about 2.5 to 3 minutes before Pell landed a nasty body kick to crumble him. I think he'll need to lean on his grappling more as he progresses through his career if he wants to be successful. And he'll definitely need to do that here against Shelley, who was successful in snapping a 2-fight losing streak last time around, where he was able to pull off the upset against Simone Patrizzi. But Shelley, very good Taekwondo specialist, utilizes straight shots down the pipe, traverses the cage very well, and it's often guys looking to take him to the ground and stifle him there. But I've been liking what I've been seeing in terms of his improvements, from his takedown defense to his get-ups to landing damage even while defending and keeping his opponents from getting to a dominant position. And that's going to be important for him here against Pell, who's likely going to be looking to take him to the ground. But I think that Shelley can traverse the cage well enough and utilize good enough defensive grappling to really touch up Pell from distance, out-damage him, outpoint him, and go on to win this fight on the scorecards. I think Pell is being overvalued in this spot, and I think Shelley, even though with a salty 6-4 record, he's still a solid fighter and provides a lot of issues for fighters that can't really track him down or keep him pinned up against the cage. So I like Shelley here to pull off the upset at +170. All right, next up, we got Wesley Maia coming in at -355 going up against Aiden Steven, who comes in at +280. Now, Maia was unable to shut down the grappling game of Shahzad Qadrian, which led to him having his 3-fight winning streak snap 2 fights ago. But he did manage to bounce back by submitting Alexander Luff back in November. Maia has a very nasty striking game with good calf kicks, good combinations, but it's also a very aggressive BJJ game when he finds himself in the driver's seat. What has caused him issues in the past are guys with strong grappling games, just as Shahzad Qadrian was able to showcase. But there have been times where Maia was able to stifle that and even defeated Qadrian in their first matchup. If he continues to improve his takedown defense and continue to control fights in the striking realm, he's going to have a lot of success. And I think he'll be able to successfully do that here against Aiden Steven, who really needs to get fights into the grappling realm to have success. We actually saw him getting grinded out by Jordi Bacchus back in April before he was able to turn the tide in the 3rd round, eventually get the back and force the submission there. But for the most part, he is a guy that struggles if he can't be in the driver's seat in the grappling realm. And I just don't believe in his wrestling. I don't believe in his grind. And I think that's going to cause him a lot of trouble here, tracking down Wesley Maia, leading to Maia chipping away at Steven, chipping away at the calf. And I think that could produce a finish under 2.5 rounds as well. So give me Maia and Maia by TKO. All right, next up, we got Anthony Orozco coming in at -1,000 going up against Luan Duarte, who comes in at +700. Now, Orozco is a guy that leans heavily on his physicality and his strength, utilizing that power, energy, and just explosivity to really stifle his opponents. He utilized his striking in the first round against Andre Augusto back in March, but then leaned on his physicality and his strength in the 2nd and 3rd round to easily grind that fight out and win it. And it seems like he always has that trump card in his back pocket if he can't find that early finish. He's always going to be stronger and more physical than most of his opponents, which allows him to stay safe when he needs to. Now he's going up against a 28-fight veteran here in Duarte, who's making his Cage Warriors debut and looking to spoil the undefeated record of Anthony Orozco. Duarte has some solid regional wins, most notably against Anderson Ferreira, who had a decent run with LFA when he was active with them as well. But it seems like Duarte can be outstruck, he can be outgrappled, and it seems like Orozco is going to be able to keep him in some bad spots. I think Augusto was a tougher opponent than Duarte, but I still think that Duarte will be tough to put away, which is why I'm kind of liking the over 1.5 here at plus money. I think we'll see Orozco try to get that early finish, and if he can't, he's going to lean on his physicality like he normally does and look to grind Duarte out, and I think Duarte will be tough to put away early. So I like the over 1.5. I think Orozco wins. We don't parlay minus 1,000, but I think Orozco wins, and I think it comes after that 7.5 minute mark. All right, next up, we got the Battle of the Hills here, where we got Stephen Hill coming in at plus 110, going up against Leon Hill, who comes in at minus 130. Now, there was some action coming in on Leon over the last, 24 hours or so. I think he got up to about minus 170, and there has been love coming in on Stephen now to bring that down to minus 130. Now, Stephen Hill is a BJJ black belt who actually started off in the striking realm, but has really taken to that BJJ game and has managed to pull off 3 submission victories in his 7 total wins. He's unfortunately now 0-2 under the Bellator banner and now comes to Cage Warriors and looking to... went on a 2-fight losing streak in his last 2 Bellator bouts, and now comes to Cage Warriors to try to, get some momentum back under his feet. Good striking, good grappling, but it seems like he might struggle against guys that are physically more capable than him, and I think that's what he's fighting here in Leon Hill. Solid BJJ specialist, really does a good job in terms of dragging his opponents to the mat and applying that top pressure. His lone defeat, or at least his most recent defeat, came to a very tough Ewan McKenzie, I believe the kid's name was, a very high-level prospect who was able to submit Leon Hill in the first round there. But Hill managed to bounce back. He has some solid victories even over a guy like Dimitru Jerlin, who's been doing some good things in Cage Warriors as well. But I think that Hill is improving his striking. He's improving that jab, maximizing his range and his reach by keeping opponents at bay when he can. But I think it's going to be his physical attributes that will allow him to really grind out Stephen Hill here. And I think that could eventually lead to a 2nd or 3rd round victory for Leon Hill. That brings us to the co-main event now with former UFC fighter Cameron Else coming in at plus 375, going up against Shirzad Qadrian, who comes in at minus 500. Now, I didn't get to watch Cameron Else's last fight live, so when I saw the results afterwards, I was very surprised that he was able to pick up a decision victory over Rhys McEwen that night. It's not so much the fact that he beat Rhys McEwen, but it's the fact that he beat him over 15 minutes. Now, going into that fight, 13 of his 17 fights had finished in the first round, with him putting together a 10-3 record. The other fights that had reached at least round 2, he went 0-3. Because he often falls short in fights that go past that first round because he starts to gas out or he ends up breaking and allows opponents to start taking over. But he was able to hurt McEwen a few times in that first and second round, and that was enough for the judges to score the fight in his favor, even though I thought McEwen did enough to rally back in the second and third rounds, but it just wasn't enough for the judges. Else is very dangerous early with the power that he possesses, and he's very aggressive with the submission game that he brings to the table, just as he showcased when he handed Paddy Pimblett the first loss of his career years and years ago. Now he's going up against a tough grappler here in Shirzad Qadrian, who will likely have the answer for the aggressiveness of Else, and I think that will allow Qadrian to keep this fight in a position where he feels most comfortable and most safe. And I think that will actually lead to Qadrian grinding Else out, slowing him down, breaking him, and then opening up a finishing opportunity for himself, probably in that 2nd or early 3rd round. Minus 500, I can understand. I think Cameron Else is very beatable, and I think Qadrian has the tools to do it. But it's the under 2.5 around that plus 140 line that really has me interested and intrigued. I think we'll see Qadrian break Else down, and even if Else wins, it's him winning early. That's more than likely how he wins, because I don't see him grinding out Qadrian over 15 minutes here. Look for Qadrian to break him down, survive the early onslaught, and eventually find that 2nd round finish. But the under 2.5 is the most intriguing spot in this fight. All right. main event now, where we got the Cage Warriors flyweight title on the line, where we got champion Haque coming in at -130, going up against Johnny Scott, who comes in at +110. Now, over the last 24 hours, this line has kind of fluctuated as well, where I saw Scott even at -130, but it seems like the love has come back in on the champion, who is often overlooked. He's going to be 35 in October. He's a little bit up there in age. Doesn't have the most entertaining fight style, but still goes out there and gets the job done against most of his opponents. He's on a 6-fight winning streak right now as well. Great all-around game. Can grapple when he needs to. Can strike when he needs to. Even defeated Sam Creasey for the title back at Cage Warriors 148. It's going to be a while since he's gotten into action because of a couple of fights that fell through back in last year against Nicholas LeBlanc. Now he's going up against a very tough Johnny Scott, another GBTT product coming up under Brad Pickett. Started off being pretty much a power puncher, but has really improved his grappling game, where he can go out there and grapple with some of the better guys he's been going up against. Most notably that Harris fight, back and forth fight. I think it was a split decision victory for Johnny Scott, but that just goes to show how he is improving his game. What's crazy that he is a power puncher, but he's only won by knockout twice in his career, including his last matchup against Toma, I believe it was, who he was able to knock out in the second round of their matchup. But I think, tactically speaking, I think Haque is the better fighter here. I think he'll be able to show Scott that, there is still some work for the youngster to do in his game. And I think that will allow Haque to get those moments, whether it's with the grappling, landing some technical shots, some good counters as well, utilizing his 25-minute advantage as well in terms of like that championship experience going into deep water. I think he'll be able to utilize that effectively here and really cause Scott a ton of trouble. So I'm going to go with the champ here. I think he retains his title. -130. If you were to be able to get in that pick'ems, I think that was a steal of a line there as well. The over 3.5 around -180, I think, is very impressive or intriguing as well. I think that's a spot where neither guy's going to be able to finish each other. I think this goes into at least to the scorecards, unless Scott is able to clip him early and get him out of there, which I just don't see happening. I think Haque just clearly wins at least 3 out of the 5 rounds here, maybe 4, but I think he grinds Scott out, wins this on the scorecards. Over 3.5 at -180, I think, is a good spot, as well as Haque's money line at -130. But I'm going to go and still Cage Warriors flyweight champion Haque. There you guys go. Legacy Warriors podcast number 2 for the week, covering Cage Warriors 192. Make sure you guys check out all the other great content that I got for UFC Nashville, which goes down Saturday. And then I'll be back on Sunday to break down UFC 318. Big pay-per-view there with Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier in the main event. Can't wait for that. All right. Good luck on your action this weekend, folks. And I'll see you guys on Sunday. Peace.